Alright, so starting things off with the lumber tumble. So in the beginning half, I like to stay as far as in front as possible, and towards the ending half, wherever the paths start to split, I usually like to stay back a little bit and then wait and just see what path I can take that's not going to lead to a dead end. Big top quiz. So for round 1, I always like to pay attention to the odd one out. So for example, this time there were 2 DK, so I was really focusing in on the Paragoomba the entire time. When you're able to move your cursor, try to go to the center as quickly as possible, so that way if the correct answer is on the left or the right, you can also have a pretty fair chance of getting both of those right as well. For rounds 2 and 3, things get a little bit more tricky, so try to pay attention to all the details. So for example, in round 3, it asks us to find which one wasn't there, and meanwhile the Bonsai Bill and Bullet Bill look very identical, so once again, make sure to pay very close attention to all the details. Camera ready. So first thing I have to say, this game's point system kind of sucks, and it can be very inaccurate at times. But with that said, here are some things that can potentially help you. Pay attention to all possible surroundings in the background, like moving objects, as sometimes they can only happen once, and it's definitely worth it to take the picture right then and there instead of missing out on that opportunity and just like lining up the angle better. You're gonna get more points if you get all the moving objects in the background. It sounds stupid, but it's just how it works. Sometimes on the final round like this one, it wants you to take a picture of a moving object, so instead of trying to chase it around, it's better to go to the background first and then wait for the moving object to go and pass it, and then whenever it does pass it, you obviously take your picture. Carousel. If you get out any time before the last 10 seconds, I'm sorry, but you're just really bad at this game. It's very self-explanatory for the first 50 seconds, however the last 10 is where things get a little bit tricky. So one thing that helps me is if I'm ever far behind, I like to just start spamming the jump button, as you can, like, cover a lot more distance by spamming jump instead of just sprinting. Like, just try it for yourself. You will go way faster than if you just run on the ground. But other than that, it's just kind of platforming and jumping over the booze. Snag the flags. So this game is very RNG dependent on where the flags spawn and if you're gonna be by them or not, but one thing that can help is whenever you see a group of 3 flags is you should go for that group instantly, and then once you get it, backtrack to whatever singular ones you missed. Sandwich. So one thing I like to do is stay at the very front of the screen where I can get a very clear view of my character, and I also like to stand on the very top sandwich and then only move out of the way whenever one's falling on top of it. Hot cross blocks. This game sucks. I always just choose the one that's right in front of me, but like, if you're talking with friends, you can maybe like convince them to do the same thing as you and then like maybe switch it up at the end, and like, there could be some mind games involved, but honestly, this game's just pretty RNG dependent. Light wave battle. So depending on the height at which you ground pound, it's going to change the speed of the wave you send out. So if you ground pound at the very bottom, the wave's going to be very slow, but if you ground pound at the very top, the wave's going to be really fast. You could also ground pound to air stall a little bit more to avoid the waves coming at you, and sometimes in this minigame, it's actually more beneficial to not even send out any waves yourself and then just avoid whenever you get the chance. You should always prioritize not getting hit first, and then after that, then you should obviously start ground pounding and sending out light waves. Swamp the difference. Honestly, this is such a cheap answer for a tip, but just play the game. The game's never going to give you any different questions and different fruits or like different patterns or whatever. You're gonna be looking out for the same thing. So for example, is it 3 bananas or 4, or what side of the leaf is the fruit on? Just stuff like that. Cold front. I like to always go to the area where the enemy's just finished glowing, as chances are it's not gonna stop and then go again, like, immediately after, if that makes any sense. Also, if you think you're about to get out, just start spamming the jump button, as sometimes doing so could save you. Hot hop. Just like Sandwich, and I like to stay in the very front of the screen if possible to get a very clear view of my character, but other than that, it's just avoid the, I don't know, the fire enemy things in the fire bar. That's pretty much it. Domination. Honestly, just look up a Mario Party mashing guide. That's about it. Free throw. So if you're positioned on the outside, chances are you're gonna win, or all you have to do is at least beat the other person on the outside. However, if you're in the middle half, you probably lose. Why this is the case is because if you're on the outside, you get first dibs at the golden baskets, and obviously you're going to want to go for the golden baskets as much as possible, so that's my tip. Go for the golden baskets as much as possible, and if there's none available, try to go for the regular ones, and if you're in the middle, there's a high chance you can't even do anything for at least like 5 seconds. This minigame's not very well designed. Granite Getaway. So once again, just play the minigame a few times and you'll understand how it works. The patterns never changed. However, towards the very end, try to avoid the large, like, path of rock, because sometimes, like, if you jump on top of it, you can actually just fall in a crack in the middle, and it happened to me, and it just kind of sucks.
Oh,
I haven't heard that one in a while. I haven't heard that one in a while.
You can fall in the fucking hole?
Hold down
What the fuck is that? Oh my god.
I'll take that.
Gatekeepers. There is absolutely no skill to this game. Just pick a door and pick a key, and that's about it. The only thing I know is I got very lucky in this recording, though. Sled to the edge. So one thing that helps me is during the example, the toad closest to you is always going to be the one that survives, and the one further away is always going to be one that falls. Other than that, it's just about looking at the objects in the background and comparing it to whenever the toad let go of the reins. Like, just look at the background and see, like, how many penguins were on this iceberg? Or was this a big iceberg? Was it a small one? Just stuff like that. Rings to riches. So, a little strategy I like to sometimes do is wait for, like, the first few seconds before the game starts, and then, like, whenever my opponents break the big snowball in the middle, then I just go for it instantly. However, if that doesn't work, and maybe they don't go for it either, you can always just go left or right. Other than that, it's just collect as many coins as possible, try to avoid snowballs from falling on top of you, and just hope the coins fall in a favorable spot for you. Treetop treasure. Just like Rings to Riches, if the coins don't spawn by you, you're kinda screwed, but whatever. The only good thing is that it's a coin game, so even if you get unlucky and the coins don't spawn by you, you should be able to get at least like 10. So that's like winning a regular minigame, so it's not all that bad. One thing I like to do, though, whenever there's someone with me, is I just like to jump on top of them the entire time, so that way, if they ever try to jump, they could also fall down, and if they try to even get the coin, they're just gonna boost me even higher, and I'm just gonna get the coin instead of them. There's really no downside to just jumping on top of other players. Treasure divers. So here's a little strategy I like to do if I spawn on the outside. So I like to go for the medium-sized chest first, bring it to the top, and then I'll wait at the top, and then wait for the player with, I'll wait for the nearest player to me with a larger chest. And then I'll try to block them off until the shark comes by and hits them, or they get hit by a blooper, one or the other. Once that happens, I'll go pick up the chest right from them, and then just bring it to the top. But if you spawn in the middle, you should be the one to go down and get the bigger chest first. Platform perils. So with this minigame, there's usually two types of roles going on. So there's one person in the front collecting all of the coins, and then there's the people stuck in the back. So if you're ever stuck in the back, what you should try to do is, whenever you're jumping to your next platform, try to jump on the person in front of you, and just, maybe they'll fall off because you jumped on their head. Other than that, just collect the coins, and one thing you should know is that with those little, like, large bricks in the center towards the ending platforms and stuff, you can actually jump over them to get to the other side of the same platform. It's very handy. Stamp out. I suck at this game, I always lose at it, but if I had to give any advice, it's called don't be the person in your friend group that wins minigames all the time. Otherwise, everyone's just gonna target you in this game, and there's really nothing you can do about it. However, if you're playing against CPUs, you should be pretty good to go. Trample lines. So just like Treetop Treasure, yeah, you just kind of jump on top of the other players as much as possible, and then just hope they die. Always be careful of the spiky ants on the wall. They can always get you. They can surprise you. Ooh, don't get surprised by them. That'd be very bad. Sunset standoff. So if you're on the solo team, I like to just go down the center and then input either left or right at the very last second. And if you're on the team of 3, I don't know, just try to survive. Nothing else you can really do. Cookie cutters. If you're on the solo team, just take a few minutes to memorize what buttons is what cookie, and then you should be good to go. One thing to note, though, is be careful of pressing your inputs too quickly, as sometimes the game won't register them, and it can really throw off your rhythm. If you're on the team of 3, just hope the solo person completely sucks, or just hope you guys have really good team chemistry, which is probably not going to happen. It's a great game, really fun for the solo team. Not that much fun for the team of 3. I really wish they made it a free-for-all instead. It'd be a lot more fun. Unfriendly flying objects. So, if you're on the solo team, I'm sure everyone has seen this by now, but you just kind of build up a big platform as much as you can, wait until you get like a block of 4, then you tip it over, just like I'm doing in this clip, and then there you go. Why it has to be a block of 4 is because you could jump over a block of 3. If it's a block of 4, you can't jump over it. Lost and Pound. So, if you're on the solo team, just hope you get lucky and press the right thing. But if you're on a team of 3, you can strategize with each other if you're talking to your teammates, obviously. So, For example, if on round 1, say you didn't get the person one time, now you should maybe double up on a certain input. So now you double up. Say you go to round 3 and then the person has 1 life left, obviously you don't double up at that point. Just a little strategizing. That's it. That's all you can do. On again, off again. If you're on the solo team, it sounds really dumb, but I like to just not even pay attention to the people below me. I just like to try and keep the little spinny balls, spike things, I don't know what they're called, on the platform as much as you can until you get like 3 of them, like 2 or 3 of them all in a row, like right next to each other. And then at that point, I'll look below and then I'll try and drop it down to 1 person. But other than that, yeah, good luck, as this game's pretty unfair for you. Bruiser Bash. So the only thing to note is that you turn faster whenever you're not punching, but other than that, you should always be punching as much as possible. And say like whenever you get someone out, at that point you'd probably stop punching and then turn around, and then there you go. Cage catch. If you're on a team of 3, don't even bother aiming for the person swimming, and rather just try and take a guess where you think they're gonna go in a second or 2, because the cage drops extremely slow. If you're on the solo team, you can do essentially anything you want to. Just try to avoid the cheap cheats. One thing I like to do is just tease the living shit out of everyone on the team of 3. I like to just put myself right in the center and then just swim out, because guess what? I'm able to. The swim speed's really fast. Blame it on the crane. So if you're on the solo team, yeah, you just kind of pick up everyone, that's about it. But if you're on the team of 3, pay attention to whenever the crane drops and try to pass it whenever it happens, and then the second you pass it, try to run backwards. If you or your teammates are too close to each other, you could probably try and spread out, but other than that, the second you pass the crane, just run backwards as much as you can. No brawl, so if you're on the solo team, just hope your little monkeys actually do something and don't get in your way. Other than that, the game is pretty favored in the team of 3, but it's still possible for you to win if you outplay your opponents and you just have a little bit more skill in them. Squeaky shakedown. So if you're on the solo team, what I like to do is specifically go after one person until they don't have any more coins left. After that happens, you go to the next person. One thing to keep track of is their invincibility frames, as basically whenever they stop flashing white, that's where you just hit them again. Rocky Rope Race. So this game's all about how much trust you have in your teammate not messing up. If you trust them, you should go very quickly. If you don't, you should probably wait just a little bit longer and just make sure and make 100% sure they grabbed onto the ledge. Picking produce. So this game is pretty easy up until the last 5 seconds or so. At that point, you probably need to grab something from your end and then bring it to the middle, and then your teammate has to go grab it from the middle and then bring it to their side. So my only advice for that is try to place the fruit far enough ahead for them to have time to grab it and bring it back to their side, but not too far ahead where you're wasting your time, as chances are you're also going to have a fruit that you're going to need to pick up and bring to your conveyor belt. Prime cut. Yeah, there's really not much advice I can give you about it. It's just all about your eyeballing skills and just trying to cut the steak perfectly in half. Shadow play. Once you play this game more than a few times on each rotation wheel, you'll probably get the hang of it very quickly, as the rotation wheels, like shapes, they never change. Matchmakers. There's really no advice out there for this game, but the only thing I would say is if you're talking to your teammate, I'd recommend to just say where the correct card is, and instead of just automatically assuming they know where it is. Defuse or lose. The second you see a spark appear, you should try and jump and ground pound as soon as possible. If you're able to link up 2 of the fuses together like I did in this clip, that's even better. Jump the gun. If you're the person making the platforms, just know the max distance in which your teammate can jump. If you're unsure about it, it's always better to be safe than sorry, so just go back by 1 instead of going forward and then just having them fall into their death. 2-axis taxi. I really don't have any advice for this game other than just like try communicating with your teammate if you're talking to them. The only thing I learned while getting this footage is this game with computers really sucks. Tricky turntable. Try to avoid the bombs as your #1 priority, and after that, focus on the coins. I just wish this game didn't take so long. Slappy go round. So keep in mind in this minigame, you're able to do short hops and full hops to throw off your timing. You're also able to ground pound extremely close to the ground to throw off your timings even more. Other than that, just pay attention to the time and don't be afraid to take it more defensive, as sometimes being defensive in this game can actually help you, as your opponent's just gonna end up hitting themselves. Also, by playing defensive, the few times that you do attack, your opponent's probably not gonna expect it, and they might actually get hit. Stone Eye Bowling. I honestly don't have any advice for this game, and I think it's pretty luck dependent, but if I had to say something, I would always just go far left or far right, and whenever I'm there, just move either a little left or right again, and then just line it up with the little hay blocks things or whatever that are in front of you. Fuzzy heights. If you're going up and then let go of your joystick, you're going to continue to slide very slowly. But if you're going up, then let go of your joystick and then press slightly down again, you're going to go to a complete stop. All the marbles. So if you look closely, there's always going to be somewhat of a path for you to follow. So yeah, you should probably go and follow it. Once you're in the front, and if your opponent's following you, you should probably turn back every now and again and try and smack them before they smack you first. Mario's 3-peat. So for Leaf Leaf, this sounds really crazy, but it might be a good idea to play second, as if you're the one who's gonna win at this one, chances are you're gonna get targeted in bumper balls. For bumper balls, I really don't have any advice other than if you're talking to the people you're playing against, it might be a good idea to try and target like one person in specific, as if you don't, chances are you're gonna end up in a stalemate, kinda like this game with me and the GPUs. For Shy Guy says, you have a good amount of time before you're forced to make an input or Shy Guy shoots you out of the air. So you might as well take all the time you need and make sure you don't mess up. Other than that, just be careful of the times where Shy Guy tries to trick you by putting up 3 flags back to back to back. Luigi's Rescue Operation. So all the micro minigames are very self-explanatory up until the Match the Pattern one. As you can see, I was struggling with it, but keep in mind, you're able to walk off of the platform and then walk back onto it again in a different spot if you ever need to. For the very end, my only advice is to have good memory, which, yeah, I don't, so I ended up losing this game. Peach's Day Off. So for the first game, I'm pretty sure you all know this by now, but you can obviously, like, bump your opponents into the bitty buds, so that's pretty funny, especially if you want to get the people you're playing with to hate you. For the second game, your strategy should really depend on how well you performed in the first round. Like, if you're in first or second, you can always try and be safe and go for the lower donut amounts. But if you're behind by points, you might want to be a little bit greedy and go for the bigger amount of points. Also, I didn't know this the first time, but all the donuts are worth 2 points. The first time I played it, I thought they were only worth 1 point, so maybe you guys didn't know that either, but I just figured I'd share that. The only thing to really keep track of is your points in the final round, as if you're in the lead and you have a pretty comfortable lead, you might want to just select the tray with the most amount of donuts, as that way you're gonna block off someone else from getting it from you. But other than that, just like pick the donut trays. It's pretty like RNG dependent. The last game, just like the donut one, is very RNG dependent on wherever the jewels end up spawning. The only thing is, if you know you can't pick up any more jewels because you know Peach is gonna change your mind for what jewel she wants, you could always block your opponent off that has one currently, kind of like I did in this clip. Daisy's Field Day. So while collecting the medals, you'll notice that the shadows of them falling are actually just going to appear on the ground. So if you ever wanted to, you can always go to a certain place in advance. If you're really good at just playing the game normally, you can always multitask and just try and look at Daisy herself, and then just try and see the general direction in which she's going to throw the red medal. It's probably not going to work that well for you, but you can always try it. On rounds 3 and 4, it's pretty similar to Scarousel, where if you jump, you'll go a lot faster than if you just sprint, but be careful about jumping over here, because if you jump too much, you're going to jump over the medals, which obviously you don't want. But other than that, just hope you get lucky and have the medals fall right on top of you. Wario's Buzzer Beater. So for some of the micro games, like the maze one, the dodging the bullet bills one, and like the pick the largest or smallest plant one, the button will always appear in the same spot every single time. So if you think the closest piranha plant to the left is the smallest, and you have to guess the smallest, you can always just spam the left button as quick as possible, before the inputs are even, like, available on the screen. And the same thing applies to all the other micro games I mentioned earlier on. Waluigi's Pinball Arcade. So the first time I played this game, I didn't actually realize this, but there's actually 2 little flippers at the very top and left of the machine, so make sure you obviously use them at all times, but other than that, it's just RNG Pinball. Yoshi's Mountain Race. So during this minigame, it's always best to take the tightest possible line rather than going wide towards the outside and grabbing the fruit. Also, try to avoid using your flutter jump whenever you're jumping up on like a tiny little elevation, as it's just slower than jumping like normal. In addition to that, there's a few shortcuts and fastest routes you can take that seem to work for me, so I'll go show you those right now. DK's Congo Line. It's a rhythm game with the L and R button. Not much else needs to be said. Junior's Gauntlet. So for the very last minigame, this is like such a cop-out answer, but it's just play the game more than like one time and you'll probably get the hang of it, as all the little micro games that you're gonna have to avoid and stuff, they're all the same every single time. There's only like a rotation of like about 15 or something like that. You're also able to punch in this game, which I'm a big fan of, as you're able to screw over your opponents while you're trying to survive on your own. Alright, with all that said, I just covered all the non-motion control minigames you could possibly play in a round of Mario Party. Thanks for watching.